Right, ladies and gentlemen, if we could take our seats, please. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming. As you can see, we're incredibly well organised. We timed that rain to get you in bang on schedule, so things are looking good. So as people are settling down, my role is to go through the basics. No fire drill planned for today, so if we do hear the fire alarm, can we please use exits on either side to head out the doors, and we congregate at the front of the house. Follow all instructions of house staff or ika staff, please. If you could put your mobile phone on silent now, please, it'd be much appreciated. And the session is due to last approximately 70 minutes or so in total. So if you can kind of settle yourselves in, get comfortable in your seats. The session is being live streamed, so we need to keep noise and sound to a minimum, movement to a minimum. But in the event of if you need something or you do need to step out, please do so. Or if you need any assistance, just raise a hand, and a member of the ika staff will be alongside to assist you accordingly. So without any further comments, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the lectern the chairperson of the Irish Kidney Association, Liz O'Sullivan.
Good morning, everybody. Today we gather to launch Organ Donor Awareness Week 2026, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all here this morning. Minister Jennifer Karen McNeill, to Senator Mark Daly, our colleagues in the HSC, Audit, hospital medical teams, NOTA, voluntary sector partners and colleagues in patient organisations. And most particularly, we welcome the families of organ donors and those of you who have benefited from organ transplantation and the gift of life. I'm Liz O'Sullivan, the National Chair of the ika, and my personal family organ donation experience is we've been very fortunate to benefit from the life-changing impact of organ transplantation, where my partner Jerry received a kidney from his sister, and my twin brother has received a double lung transplant. My older brother is awaiting a lung transplant. So with the generosity of others and their families, I'm delighted to be here today. With gratitude in promoting, acknowledging and helping to create further awareness of organ donation and its transformational outcomes that it can have for individuals and families. It is with immense appreciation and gratitude that we say thank you to all those special people and their families who in their darkest hours, at the most difficult time, generously donated the organs of their loved ones so that others might live and have the gift of life. We also thank living kidney, liver, stem cell, bone marrow donors who have given the gift of life to others. Organ donation would not be possible without the many teams of dedicated healthcare professionals involved in organ donation and transplantation right across the country. We thank you for your caring, professional expertise, coupled with empathy and discretion, particularly at the very tragic time for deceased donor families. This is really appreciated. We also commend all those organisations and people supporting organ donation. Our Minister, public representatives, TDs and senators, those serving both in the statutory and voluntary sector organisations. And we are delighted to see so many of you here today. Let me take this opportunity also to thank you, the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Ray McAdam, for the use of this beautiful venue, the Mansion House. We have patients and their families who are present here today who have experienced organ failure, and we will hear from you some of your life experience later in the morning. Our condolences to all the people, families and friends who have lost loved ones during the past years. And can I now ask you that we would have a moment's silence to honour and remember all those who have died. May they rest in peace. Finally, I will outline our agenda for today and the list of speakers. We expect to be, as Colin said, about 70 minutes in duration. Our ika CEO, Carol Moore, will give a quick summary of organ donation in Ireland and outline the campaign for the Organ Donor Awareness Week 2026. We will hear from the HSE's Chief Clinical Officer, Dr. Colin Henry, and from Minister Jennifer Carol McNeill. We will hear from a mother who is supporting her child and husband on dialysis, and grateful people who have received organ transplants. And we will also hear from a deceased organ donor family. Professor Peter Conlon, newly appointed Clinical Director of Organ Donor and Transplant Ireland and the HSE, and Maria Mesbet, the Potential Organ Donor Audit Manager with the National Office for Clinical Audit, will also speak to us today. So now, without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Carol, our CEO. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Liz, and thank you all, so many of you being here today and giving up your valuable time. So before I get into the campaign, I'd first like to just outline where do we see transplant in Ireland at this point in time. So as you can see from the slides, the purple bar shows the pre-COVID level of activity, the average for the 5 years prior to pre-COVID. And as you can see, with the exception of kidneys in 2023 and small numbers of pancreas transplants, we're not actually getting back to our pre-COVID activity. So obviously that is disappointing. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which we will go through when we hear from some of our speakers. And how are other countries doing on these figures compared to us? Well, if we look, we can see internationally, and the international comparison generally used is the number of transplanted patients per million of population. We can see that Ireland is trending downwards. Other countries like Latvia are getting better. Croatia is staying more or less the same, but they're still ahead of us. Spain, who are the acknowledged leaders of transplant, are still firing ahead at 133 per million. And then the UK, who used to be the leaders in this area, they actually fell back. Now, what's interesting about the UK is that they have a very detailed analysis of the reasons why they're falling back, because they have a very detailed potential donor audit, and they can provide these figures very, very quickly. So internationally, we're seeing countries pulling ahead of where Ireland is, and obviously we would like to see that change. So if we look at the reasons, and there can be multiple reasons why transplant figures can go up or down, because first of all, there has to be a death in a hospital ICU, and only 1% to 2% of deaths actually happen in an ICU. And then in these busy ICUs, potential donors have to be identified. And again, there has to be a very clear agreed methodology for that, with all ICUs singing off the same hymn sheet. And then families have to be approached, and again, it's very, very important that that is done in a very sensitive and delicate way, because obviously it's a very difficult time for families. And then there has to be an assessment. not just of the donor, but also to make sure that there is actually a transplant recipient that's available or suitable for that transplant. And then there has to be final family consent for the donation to go ahead. And then a surgical team have to remove the organs, and then a transplant team have to transplant them. So over an awful lot of moving parts, and over 100 people are involved in every single operation, which is amazing when you think about the complexity of doing this process. In terms of measurements, and as an accountant, I'm big into what gets measured gets managed, and I think that's true throughout the system. What we find is that we do have a potential donor audit, which is it's a kind of early stages, but it's not covering the end-to-end process. It's only going as far as consent, and it's only covering a small number of ICUs. And again, what we'd like to see is that it would be expanded to cover all ICUs, and Maria will be talking about that in a few minutes. So there was a report published in the Medical Independent, which was a HSE internal review, and what that concluded was that we needed more definition around the transplant and organ donation services, and we needed funds to be ring-fenced for all types of organ donations, and that the governance was splintered. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're not seeing the progress that other countries are making, and I know Colin will be saying a few words on that. So what we'd like to see is obviously an extension of the potential donor audit to all ICUs and to cover the end-to-end process. And we'd like to see a formal transplant strategy covering all organs, all transplants, and that this would have ring-fence funding. And we know there's an awful lot of pressure on the healthcare budget, and hopefully we can make a case here today for why it should be prioritised. So if we look at kidney transplantation, for example, although transplant clinically is the most effective, it's also cost effective. Every transplant over 15-year average lifespan saves 1.6 million per patient. So there's a really good accounting and economic reason to invest more in transplants. And it's all about community as well. In these dark times when there's so many dehumanisation of people, transplantation is all about community. It's a private event turned into public benefit, and we see this every year in our service of remembrance. So that's the story on where we see transplantation, what our ask is. And now to give a very quick overview of the campaign itself. So, recognising a diverse Ireland, the resources are available in a number of different languages, and we expand that each year, and it's available to download on our website. We have a wide range of partners. This isn't just about the Irish Kidney Association, it's about other patient advocacy organisations, it's about the chemist chain showing resources. We have volunteers out in libraries doing information stands in shopping centres, so hopefully you will see people out and about during the week. And we have events planned as well with a wide range of partners. Liver Ireland Support Network are doing a walk. We'll be down in Galway meeting with the Stoneboat, a deceased organ donor family, the Goggins, who have Catherine Connolly, president, coming to a north-south event. And there will be a celebration in that beautiful garden that they have built, and it's a charity. So again, a great example of community. And we're really looking forward to that. So we encourage people to say hello to people when they see it. Okay. So lots of resources available from the website. And finally, I'd just like to thank all our volunteers who are out there telling their story, because that makes the difference. Thank you. So next in my role as MC, I'd like to call upon Stella McDonough. Stella is a mother who supports not just one person on dialysis, but two people, her husband Jerry and her 11-year-old daughter Saoirse. So Stella, if you'd like to.
Good morning. My name is Stella McDonough and I'm from Liscannor in County Clare. In our home, organ donation isn't an abstract idea. It isn't a headline or a statistic. It isn't something we talk about in theory. It is our daily reality. Right now, my husband Gary and our daughter Saoirse, 11, rely on hemodialysis to stay alive. Gary is waiting for his third kidney transplant and Saoirse is waiting for her first. Gary's brother received a kidney transplant in 2013, and earlier this year we said goodbye to Gary's mother Mary, who had spent over 20 years on haemodialysis, attending the same unit as Gary. They all live with a rare genetic kidney disease called Alport syndrome. It is a condition that damages the kidneys, leading to kidney failure, resulting in the need for dialysis and ultimately a transplant. Haemodialysis is not something that quietly fits around your day. It takes over. Multiple times a week, for hours at a time, everything stops. Life is scheduled around machines, hospital appointments and recovery time. 3 days a week, Gary attends the haemodialysis unit at University Hospital Limerick, and on those very same days, Saoirse attends the haemodialysis unit at Temple Street Hospital, as all paediatric kidney patients in Ireland receive their specialist renal care through Children's Health Ireland Dublin. And as a result, most days Gary and Saoirse don't even see each other. We pass in the car. I wave through the window. A second, that's all they get. And then they're gone again. Both travelling in different directions. A father and his daughter, both sick, both exhausted, both fighting the same illness, both enduring the same treatment, and yet rarely able to sit in the same room together. On the 9th of May 2025, Saoirse went into hospital. We thought we were going to fix an issue with her peritoneal dialysis and come home. Instead, she was there for over 8 weeks. 8 weeks, 4 operations. Every time we thought we were getting somewhere, something else went wrong. And Saoirse, she just kept going. She kept smiling. She faced the unknown with a bravery that still takes my breath away. But as her mother, it was heartbreaking to witness. And while she was in Dublin, Gary was at home tied by a dialysis regime. He couldn't go to her. He couldn't sit beside her bed. He couldn't hold her hand. He sat in a dialysis chair waiting for the phone to ring. And too many times it was me telling him things had gotten worse. Another complication, another operation. I remembered the silence. Because what do you say when your child is suffering and you can't even get to them? You can't take their place. As a parent, that breaks something in you. So now our lives are built around haemodialysis. We live on the road. 4 days a week I travel with Saoirse from Clare to Dublin. We leave at 3:30 a.m, a 3.5 to 4 hour car journey, 4 hours on a dialysis machine and then a return journey home. And we do it again and again and again because this is what keeps her alive. But it's not living. It takes her from school, from her friends, from everything a childhood should be. She should be thinking about school, friends and sleepovers, not hospital wards, surgeries and dialysis machines. For Gary, facing a third transplant brings both gratitude and fear in equal measure. As a wife, I carry the knowledge of everything he has already been through. The hope of previous transplants, one in 2004 and the other in 2019. The generosity of donor families and the absolute heartbreak when the transplant didn't last. Because you don't just lose a transplant, you lose the life you got used to living. Throughout it all, the kindness of our family, community, the care of medical and nursing staff at University Hospital Limerick and Temple Street, and the support of the Irish Kidney Association has carried us through some of our darkest days. But organ donation could change everything. It would give us back the things people don't think twice about. Standing under a hot shower without worrying about the hemo line getting wet. Running carefree into the sea on a spontaneous day out in Clare. Being able to eat and drink freely without restrictions, without constant monitoring. It would mean saying yes more often than no. It would give Gary his life back and it would give Saoirse her childhood back. And for our home family, it would mean breathing a little easier, sleeping a little better, living life a little fuller. Right now, somewhere, someone has the power to change our story. One decision to become an organ donor can transform not just one life, but an entire family's future. So today, and for Organ Donor Awareness Week, I ask you to think about that power, to have that conversation, to make your wishes known, because behind every transplant is a family like ours, hoping, waiting and believing that someone, somewhere will say yes. Thank you.
Stella. I think you can see why we get patients here. It's very tough. It's a lot of effort and hard work for them, but I think Stella's stories epitomises more than anything we as managers or clinicians can say. So thank you so much, and I do hope things improve for you very, very soon. So next up we have Dr. Colm Henry, Chief Clinical Officer of the HSE, and a person with a very deep commitment to making a life better for kidney and transplant patients.
Thank you, Carol. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted and it's a great pleasure to share a platform, the launch of Organ Donation Awareness Week in 2026. Anyone who's encountered Carol will know she's a tour de force of an organisation which is a powerful advocate and voice for patients and families with kidney disease. And anyone who's encountered will know that you don't go out of the room without a commitment given that will tie you down for days on the bike or climbing up mountains or whatever it is for Irish Kidney Association. So I want to acknowledge your leadership, Carol, and that of the Irish Kidney Association. This isn't just a launch, but a celebration of what is a unique service in healthcare. It's unique in it displays all the best traits of human nature, the better natures, angels of our nature, generosity, altruism, compassion, and all at a time of unimaginable grief for families. The programme, any transplant programme is best viewed as a really ideal collaboration in healthcare, a mehel, as was described by Carol, a mehel of patients, families, clinicians, and wider society signing a covenant or an agreement to help each other in the event that somebody needs a transplant, or in the event that they would find themselves, or the family members would find themselves in a position where they could be potential donors. The programme itself was first imagined, developed and nurtured by some of the icons of Irish medicine, David Hickey and Dilly Little, who's just retired, and over their lifetime they changed the lives of so many patients and families. But I know from talking to both of them, they were looking to accept any credit. Their credit, Dilly Little always says, starts with families of donors right across the country, who, as I said, in the most unimaginable circumstances, show the most human of traits in generosity and compassion. And in 2025, that through that generosity and the families of 69 deceased donors, 29 individuals in the living programme, we had a total of 133 kidney transplants and 194 organ transplants. And this is good, but it's not enough. We don't compare well with other European countries. We've fallen in rates, in organ transplant rates, particularly post-pandemic. And the new human tissue bill needs to be harnessed to deliver the enormous goodwill, which is clear in this room, but it reflects the goodwill in the wider Irish public towards transplantation. And we need to do this through increasing living donor rates and increasing anticipatory transplantation, so that we can people can migrate from before they even go on dialysis straight to transplantation where this is possible. To increase opportunities for those approaching end-stage renal disease and dialysis for transplantation, to facilitate, as the Act does, altruistic and per-donor exchange, other ways of increasing our numbers. Carol referred to dialysis in the past 20 years has seen an extraordinary expansion of dialysis. 2003, 826 people on in-centre hemodialysis, 2023, over 2,000. Ongoing expansion of dialysis in response to demographic needs and chronic disease is not a strategy in itself. We can't, just as in wider healthcare, we can't build hospitals or beds or healthcare workers in response to the way we deliver care now. We have to harness increased opportunities for transplantation where it's a viable and clinical alternative to dialysis. And you've heard very, very, very eloquently from the previous speaker the impact of this on families, and we owe it to her and her families to increase our living donor and our overall donor rates and the activity of our programmes. Some of the responses we've made, we've increased, and Carol will know this, we've appointed a dedicated clinician to Beaumont Hospital recently who will be linking with all dialysis centres, with all nephrologists throughout the country, specifically with a remit to increase our living donor rates. We will be expanding the potential donor audit, and yes, we are reviewing the governance of the service, because the governance, of course, is complicated. This is high-end surgery located in hospitals which have conflicting demands. But it's often said about governance, structure follows function. The structures of the governance of those programmes must serve the function and the strategy, which is to increase opportunities for transplantation. With regards to dialysis, we're trying and piloting a dialysis registry, which will look and drive standardisation of care across all renal units in Ireland, and we hope to operationalise that and get that up and running very soon. Just to finish, the transplant programme is not for kidney transplant, is not Bowman Hospital, it's not the renal units, it's not ODTI, and it's not even the Irish Kidney Association. It's a unique collaboration across the Irish public. It reaches into every family, and it should reach into every family, because all of us can help our neighbour as members of that nettle that Carol described. Corinne, Michael, thank you.
Thanks very much, Colin, and we're very much welcome the appointment of somebody dedicated to improving kidney transplantation, and we think it's an excellent appointment. And we are delighted to hear you talking about the governance, because I do think it's really, really important that if we can get the governance right, that we can, there's such commitment, there's such dedication that we can actually get the rates of transplant up. So thank you very much. So next up we have the Minister for Health, Jennifer Carroll McNeill, a person working extremely hard to improve services for patients, and I'm delighted that she's actually able to be here today because she had another commitment and lots of pressures on her time. So Minister, you are very welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing you speak.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here in the presence of our Lord Mayor, Ray McAdam. Thank you for letting us have the gaff, as it were. Do you want to come up and join us? You're very welcome. It's a very nice gaff now, Ray. Thank you so much. And perhaps we'll have another event here again if you're very good to us. Fantastic to see all of you, and fantastic. Thank you, Carol, for your words, and thank you, Liz, for having me here today. I've been really struck by Stella and her contribution this morning, but I think more than anybody else, we all took some photographs outside, but nobody took more photographs than the fantastic Saoirse, and I think we all need to give her a huge round of applause. For not only being the bravest person here, but also being by far the best person in a photograph with all of us. So thank you, Saoirse, you're fantastic, and it's wonderful that you're here with your team as well from Temple Street. So that's really just fantastic. It's my first time to have the opportunity to be with you here at this event, this hugely important event, raising awareness for organ donation, and to reflect on the importance of organ donation and how that's going in Ireland and where we can go further. And I'm so glad to hear Colm speak about the appointment with Beaumont and what more is possible there. It makes so much sense to concentrate it in that way, and I thank him for his work on that. But if you'll forgive me, more important today, we'll hear from transplant recipients, from Stephen, Irene, Donal and Shannon, who are going to share their stories very kindly, very bravely with us about how their lives have changed through transplantation. And of course, we've heard from Stella and Gary and Saoirse as well, who share their story and the impact on their lives. In particular, I have to say, on the necessity to travel to 2 different hospitals and the balance of that. And you know, of course, Temple Street is an excellent paediatric hospital, but to wonder, you know, what more can be done to support locally and whether that's something that's possible and safe, recognising the different paediatric approaches. But it is an important thing that you highlight, and the impact on a family's life of travelling so regularly to Dublin for complex specialist paediatric care, and how we might balance that appropriately and safely in other parts of the country better for the future. I also, I want to recognise as well Mary, whom I had the good fortune to meet earlier, who is going to share her story of her daughter Jane's life and the legacy that she left as a donor, and we recognise and appreciate that contribution in a very deep way as well. But I'm so grateful to all of you for your openness in sharing your experiences to bring home why this work matters, and why it matters for the people in this room, and why it matters for so many different people who don't yet know it's going to matter to them. It's going to matter for them. It's going to matter for a loved one. And we sit here today with some knowledge and some insight into that. But the reason that you're here today is to drive awareness for the benefit of people whom you will never meet. And so I thank you for that commitment, and I thank you for that focus. A total of 279 transplants were made possible last year by 69 deceased and by 29 living donors. Absolutely selfless donations, and the positive life-changing impact that they had and enabled are remarkable, and they represent more than activity. It's one thing standing here and giving out the numbers. Every transplant changed and improved in some way a life, and as Stella said, not always for forever, but it makes a big impact, and it's a measure of hope, and it's a hope, a better lifestyle and a better impact. And the families, the circumstances though, I'm so conscious, the circumstances in which families make the choice to donate are characterised by overwhelming grief and loss, and the very worst moments of some people's lives become opportunities for others. And the kindness and the altruism and the selflessness to take pause and to take that opportunity to think that through in what must be the worst moments for any family, it's an enormously selfless thing to do, and I thank every one of them for it. I also thank the ICU staff who provide support and space and kindness to them to have that moment, to have those moments, to think about that, and to give them the opportunity to reflect on what they might like to do. There's no way of saying something like, I hope it gives comfort. It's a loss, it's a family loss. But to enable life going differently for other people beyond that loss is something I think that we might all reflect upon in our own lives, and what would we do in those circumstances. And that's why we're here today, to say thank you and support those who have made those decisions, and to encourage and drive awareness for those who could yet make those decisions. As Stella says, for those it would make a big impact on so many different people's lives. But none of this happens without the sustained commitment of the health system to enabling this space and time for the conversation, the focus on transplantation, and the sheer practicality of support that is necessary for that. I want to thank, and so many here today, it's excellent, although what is happening back in the hospitals, so many today who are dedicated to transplant centres, transport coordinators, organ donation nurse managers, ICU staff, Organ Donation Transplant Ireland itself, and everybody working to raise awareness. Just to give you a sense of the scale of activity that is going on, I mean, Beaumont Hospital last year performed 138 kidney transplants. Vincent's performed 28 liver and 5 pancreas transplants. The Mater performed 7 heart and 16 lung transplants. And in the spirit of honouring the donation, a further 13 transplants were performed where a suitable match was not found in Ireland, but a suitable recipient was found in another country, and that's to be celebrated as well. Those transplants wouldn't have been possible without the commitment of healthcare staff, their skill, their empathy, and I really do want to thank them. But also I want to thank the patient advocacy groups, and I see a great friend of mine here at the back of the room, Councillor Jacqueline Burke, who's worked with the Irish Kidney Association for many years and is an advocate through her professional career, but also now as a councillor in Dún Laoghaire. So just to acknowledge Jacqueline, but the many other volunteers who work in this space to keep the concept and the practice of donation visible, to keep fundraising, to keep talking to their friends, to keep talking to their neighbours about donation, about transplantation, and about what's possible for other people. As Minister for Health, I'm committed, of course, to working alongside you to develop our transplant services. We've had, as I've said, a couple of developments. I'm grateful to Colin for highlighting the practical development in Beaumont, but there have been really important legislative changes that have happened that are going to take this further and forward again. Last year, after much effort by everybody, but especially advocacy groups, legislators, patients and the clinical community, I was able to commence Part 2 of the Human Tissue Act, and that was a really long-awaited piece of legislation that provides now for the first time a legislative framework for donation and transplantation services in Ireland, which is hugely significant. It introduced the soft opt-out system of consent for organ donation, meaning that when a person dies now, it's presumed that they would wish to donate their organs unless they have objected to donations. And that's really significant. And we see, and these are two anecdotal figures that don't directly sit together in a comparable way, but just by way of anecdotal description. We know, for example, with the fantastic driver's licence that I held up earlier, the little opt-in that's there, the proactive opt-in, 1.65 million people proactively took a step to opt-in. That's really significant, and it shows the scale of support among the Irish people for organ donation and transplantation. Conversely, people are entirely entitled to opt out and take a proactive decision to opt out, but only 63,000 have done that since. And I suspect that the bulk of people would be in that first period after the commencement of the legislation. So they're two very different numbers, both respecting all of their choices, but just to show the scale of public support. And so I think that's why it's so important as legislators we took that step to make sure that it was a soft opt-in, a presumption of support. And I'm so glad that we've been able to move that on. But of course family members are always consulted in that process, and the wishes of the deceased are central, which is why it's so very important to talk to your families as well and make it easier on them to help with those decisions in those moments of difficulty. A novel aspect of the legislation that's just as important will see the introduction of non-directed altruistic donation. What does that mean? Non-directed altruistic donation basically means that people will be able to donate an organ, living people will be able to donate an organ to somebody that they don't know, and that's a significant and important change, and again enables more. Those legislative changes are important, but we still have the power to choose what's right for you. But all of that requires funding. It requires moving forward with the framework, and I know that more funding has supported the development of the national structure of organ donation. Transplant Ireland, an additional €2 million of new development funding was provided with the goal of increasing organ availability for transplantation, reducing the existing transplant wait list, funding the expansion of the national potential donor audit, which I think will be published in September of this year. So the funding is going with this as well, which is just as important. I do want to take the opportunity to thank, if I may, the outgoing National Director, Dr. Brian O'Brien, for his work, and to welcome Professor Peter Conlon as the new clinical lead for organ donation, and Derek Crimmon as ODTI's Director of Nursing. The funding has also supported the development of the staffing infrastructure. But that combination really of what I'm saying of financial supports plus legislative supports is a really important step forward now to a different landscape for transplantation and donation. It's specifically intended to reduce the transplant waiting list of 650 people. But this event is central to it as well, raising awareness, talking to our friends, talking to our neighbours, raising the awareness of the impact that donation and transplantation can have, and taking time to understand what people have been through and what's possible. More than anything else, this simple message: don't leave your loved ones in doubt. Don't leave your loved ones in doubt. And while we've created this soft system where people have to proactively opt out, as I said, as other people will say better than I can possibly say, in those moments of difficulty, very big decisions have to be made, and you make your family's life easier if you can say to them, as I would say loud and proud, I would want my organs donated in any way that was possible to anybody who could be the beneficiary, whether they were in Ireland or outside of Ireland. So I do want to thank everybody who has had that conversation, do want to thank everybody who has made that statement out loud, and ask those who haven't had the opportunity yet to reflect on this, to think about it, and to think about the impact that it could make for them, for their families, for their loved ones, for their community, to have the totally altruistic approach of wanting to give more beyond our time here, and to have those opportunities for other people's lives to be enhanced and developed and treasured and protected in so many different ways. Your choice can make a genuinely life-changing difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister, who has to leave now, and we really do appreciate your support, and it's great to hear that the Minister herself would be an organ donor if the situation arose, so I think that's a great endorsement. So thank you very much, Minister, and great to hear that progress has been made as well on the altruistic donation. As you know, an independent panel has to be set up to assess those, and we've already had inquiries from people wondering how they can be an altruistic donor, so that's great news indeed. Next up we have Shannon Byrne. Shannon is still very young, and unfortunately at a young age she developed liver disease. So Shannon is going to come forward and tell her story now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shannon Byrne, and I'm a liver transplant recipient. After what can only be described as a roller coaster of a year, this summer I look forward to celebrating being 1 year post-transplant. a feeling I often found myself dreaming about on those challenging days when it felt like you were climbing a mountain with no end in sight. In my early teenage years, I was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis, a very rare liver condition that currently has no cure. I chose to remain positive and try to maintain a healthy lifestyle in order to avoid being listed for a liver transplant. I soon discovered that needing a transplant was not a choice or a result of a lifestyle choice. Rather, it was a symptom of my illness. At an already challenging age in an individual's life, navigating the reality of a lifelong liver condition in your early teenage years, adjusting to the aspect of having to take medication daily, and attending hospital for regular reviews was a very overwhelming reality you quickly had to acquaint yourself with. PSC came with its challenges, and dealing with the symptoms such as extreme fatigue and intermittent illness was not easy during the formative years of my life and years spent studying at university. I always tried to live as normal a life as possible and not let this illness define me. With many nights ending with me falling into bed exhausted, I powered through university and onto my professional studies at the Law Society of Ireland, where I have since qualified as a solicitor. COVID was a very challenging time in my life and indeed everyone's life. For me, this was a point in time when my symptoms began to worsen. My bloods began to fluctuate more often and I began experiencing symptoms such as severe abdominal pain, fever, pruritus and sometimes episodes of jaundice that usually resulted in hospital admission. Still remaining somewhat naive, I used to believe that these were merely just blips along the road and I'd be back on track in no time, not realising that this was the beginning of my liver coming under pressure. In 2024, following COVID-19 infection, my condition began to deteriorate rapidly. This time was very different. Unlike before, my symptoms were not settling. This was a very scary time. I went from attending clinic twice a year to weekly, and I knew this was without reason. We tried many different medications with little relief. Options were becoming smaller as time went on and my symptoms were amplifying. By late 2024, discussions around transplantation became a reality, and in January 2025, I was officially placed on the transplant list. A day I will never forget. That day, my parents, partner, and I walked out of the hospital in complete silence, concerned and worried about what lay ahead. The preceding months were exceptionally tough. At this stage, I was becoming weaker and weaker and spent most of the following months in hospital, with brief stays at home in between. That was a period that really tested my strength, both physically and mentally, a fight you never thought you'd be facing at 29 years of age. My family and partner were becoming increasingly worried and began to explore options such as potential living donation, which unfortunately is not available in Ireland and would have required travel to the UK. That a significant number of family and friends stepped forward offering to support me in as a living donor. As time went on, my symptoms were worsening and I knew that time was not on my side at the rate my symptoms were progressing, and watching my loved ones witness my rapid deterioration was not easy. However, my life changed last summer when I received a call to say that there may be a potential donor. I don't think anything will prepare you for that moment, your heart pounding, thinking of a family who at a time of grief were filled with such empathy and courage to selflessly think of another family and give the gift of life. I can still recall going to the hospital church and praying for my donor's peaceful transition. That feeling from that moment will never escape me. The weeks following surgery were challenging, but from the moment you wake up with a sense of fight within you, a fight for the second chance you have been given by your beautiful donor and their family. The difference after transplant has been night and day. I never truly realised how sick I was until I started to recover. I have been given the gift of life I never thought I would have. I think about my donor every day and carry them with me in everything I do. Because of their selfless act, I can now look forward to my future with optimism. There will never be enough words to thank my donor and their family for what they have done for me. I also pay tribute to the incredible medical team in St. Vincent's University Hospital, who not only cared for me throughout my illness and transplant, but held my hand and walked alongside me throughout this difficult time in my life. They truly are earth angels. And to my beautiful parents, brothers and partner Connor, who I've since gotten engaged to, and extended family, they were my rock and picked me up in those moments of weakness and encouraged me to keep up the fight and not let this illness define me. Deciding to share my story here today has not been easy. Being a private person, it is something I debated about. But I stand here today and share my journey as a tribute to my beautiful donor, who selflessly brought light back into my life at a time I felt the light was beginning to fade. I share my journey for those who sit eagerly waiting for that miracle call, and I share my journey in hope that my story may resonate with others and encourage them to become an organ donor. Organ donation restores hope in families. It gives people a second chance at life after silently battling a condition for many years. And it joins two families together, a bond unique and unlike any other, where two individuals navigate life as one whole. This coming week, I'm urging everyone to take a moment and think about becoming an organ donor. Please speak with your loved ones and don't leave them in doubt. Share your wishes around organ donation. Your decision could change someone's life just like it did for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. You were so articulate, and you really brought home that this isn't just a physical illness, the mental toll, not just on you, but on your family and your friends, very, very difficult. And it's just amazing to see how well you are. And I know the healthcare professionals, Colin always gives out to me, and I say this, but it's like a miracle, isn't it? And I know, Colin, I know you hate me saying that, but wow, it is like a miracle when you see transplantation happen. So again, thanks to all the healthcare professionals and people who make this happen. So next up we have Donald Kenny, and Donald Kenny had diabetes, and he received a kidney pancreas transplant. Donald.
Hi everyone, my name is Donald Kenny and I'm a recent kidney and pancreas transplant recipient. My journey started 21 years ago when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. For most of my adult life, I lived and managed my diabetes on a daily basis until 2018 when I was diagnosed with kidney failure. I started peritoneal dialysis late in 2018 and at home every day for 8 hours every night. And in 2019 I was put on the transplant list for kidney and pancreas. As my condition progressed, I transitioned from home dialysis to attending Vincent's Hospital 3 days a week for treatment, which later increased to 4 days a week. Throughout that time I had kidney failure. I never felt myself. I always had a general feeling of being unwell and suffered from an extreme lack of energy. Then in 2025 I was called for a transplant as a suitable donor had been found. With that selfless act, my life was completely changed for the better. After my operation, I immediately felt my energy levels return and started feeling well again. Thanks to my donor, I was finally able to get back to my life. I often find myself thinking about how much this wonderful gift has changed everything for me. Probably the biggest change I experienced is not having to constantly check my blood sugars multiple times a day and taking multiple injections of insulin on a daily basis. I'd like to thank all the people in the dialysis unit and the renal team in Vincent's Hospital for the care and treatment they gave me over the last 7 years. And most importantly, I'd like to give a huge heartfelt thanks to my donor and their family for such a life-changing gift, for which I will be forever grateful. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires people to become a donor and give the gift of life to another person. Thank you.
Thanks, Donald. It really brings home that dialysis is treatment, but life on dialysis is really, really tough. And as Shannon was saying, we spend so much time in hospital, and the lack of energy and the lack of quality of life. So really, really important. And 7 years is a long time to wait on the transplant list. So it's terrific and inspiring to see the difference that it has made in your life. So next up we have Professor Peter Conlon. He's the newly appointed Clinical Director of Organ Donation Transplant Ireland in the HSE, or to give it a short name, ODTI. You can see we all, in the healthcare world, we all love these short names that we all have trouble, well, I have trouble pronouncing. So Peter, over to you.
So, Carol, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me here today. Before I begin with what I had prepared to say, the stories that I heard from Stella and Gary and Sharon and Donal, even though I've been a doctor for 40 years this summer, they really make me think and appreciate why I became a doctor and what the influence that this business of transplantation that we're in, what a difference it makes. And they really, I enjoy going to work every day, but hearing stories like that really makes it come home. So I've been working in the area of organ transplantation for 35 years. Every day during that time, I've been privileged to see the life-saving and life-transforming effects this surgery brings to our patients. The skills of the surgeons and the physicians and nurses and healthcare staff puts transplantation into effect. However, none of this is possible without the heroic sacrifice of living and deceased organ donors. These donor families, at a time of greatest tragedy to themselves, while heartbroken with the loss of their loved ones, selflessly give the gift of their loved ones' organs to the people of Ireland with organ failure, so that others may live and have a good quality of life. Similarly, living donors go through the sacrifice of organ donation and surgery to give to others, some of whom they don't even know themselves, may live and be healthy. Ireland has a strong and successful transplant programme. Since 1962, when the first kidney transplant was done in Jervis Street Hospital, more than 6,500 kidney transplants have been performed between Jervis Street and, in more recent times, Beaumont Hospital. 1,200 liver transplants performed in St Vincent's Hospital since the programme started in 1993. More than 400 heart and 400 lung transplants have been performed at the Mater Hospital. Almost 4,000 of these patients are still alive and living lives that have been transformed by this surgery, all as a result of the generosity of these selfless organ donors. You've heard of 3 of these recipients today. It is these people, these organ donors, who I particularly want to applaud today and commend others to think about and discuss with their family their wishes to become organ donors should the unthinkable happen. The outcomes of organ transplantation continue to be very positive. Many patients experience long-term success. Some kidney transplant recipients living well with their transplant for 20, 30, 40 and some even 50 years. I have a number of patients that follow with us in Beaumont that are more than 50 years, probably were transplanted before many of the people in this room were born. This highlights the enduring benefits of transplantation for patients and their family. While this success is encouraging, it is, has been said earlier, notable that last year we saw lower numbers of transplants than in previous years, reinforcing the need for us to continue to strengthen our national approach. The mission of the Office of Organ Donation and Transplantation, of which I am now the Clinical Director, is to provide national leadership, governance and coordination for compassionate and supportive organ donation and transplantation system. One that honours the donors and their families, that maximises the gift of donation and delivers safe, timely, life-saving transplants for the patients. As clinical lead, I am committed to advancing this mission in collaboration with colleagues across the health service. We will do this in multiple ways. We will be supporting the training of critical care staff to ensure that families are approached with sensitivity and compassion, and that donation pathways are well understood. We will expand the potential of organ donation by educating, supporting and facilitating and empowering all Model 3 and 4 hospitals to be able to complete in an empathetic way, compassionate way, donation after cardiac death. We will use modern technologies such as normothermic regional perfusion to ensure that every donor is maximised with respect to getting the greatest possible chances to help others. We will strengthen the living donation programme, as Colin described earlier, including the participation in international exchange schemes and altruistic donation. We will encourage public awareness of the success and importance of organ donation to support informed discussions with families. There is a clear potential for further enhanced transplantation rates, and by building on existing strengths and learning from comparable systems, we can improve access for patients awaiting transplant. These are the ambitions with which the ODTI align and the priorities of the Department and the Minister. I look forward to working collaboratively with all stakeholders to achieve them for the benefit of our patients. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the heroic work of the healthcare professionals across the system who make transplantation, and most importantly, I want to acknowledge the generosity of organ donors and their families. Their contribution is at the heart of everything that we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. It's great to hear about your ambition to improve the rate of organ donation and transplantation. And I think all of us in the patient organisations, we're really looking forward to working with you and supporting you and the ODTI, HSE and the hospitals in delivering on that. So thank you very much. So next up we have Irene McGrath, who had a double lung transplant. And as you can see from her photograph, and I think this is a brilliant photograph that epitomises the benefits of transplant, she has reached new heights. So over to you, Irene.
Hi everyone, my name is Irene McGrath. I come from the real capital, Cork. I live there with my husband Gary. I have a rare autoimmune condition called scleroderma, which resulted in scarring of my lungs in my late 30s. I began to feel breathless at the slightest exertion. Even walking on a slight incline would catch me. Eventually I could no longer play sports or take part in any activities, and I was placed on oxygen therapy, and after various tests was added to the organ donor list. I remained on that list for 3.5 years approximately, and during that time I was called to Dublin 6 times for potential matches, but on each occasion I wasn't a match. I was eventually admitted to the matter as my condition worsened. I could no longer function, and my oxygen requirements became too great and too unsafe for home use. I waited patiently and prayed continuously for a suitable match. It's still hard to admit, knowing that someone had to leave this life in order for me to live. But the reason I'm standing here before you today is because family out there, somewhere, made the choice to donate their loved one's organs, and because of that, I was saved. I received my life-changing operation when I was literally at death's door. I know for a fact there was talks of sending me home that same week for palliative care to die peacefully at home. So it was literally a miracle that I was saved. I will be eternally grateful to my donor and their family. They were the ones who agreed to give life to an unknown person while grieving such great and huge unpalatable loss themselves. I am incredibly lucky and blessed to have received a double lung transplant. You immediately forget all the hardships that came before the surgery. It's like starting from ground zero again, but without the oxygen. I returned home to my emotional and much relieved family just 6 weeks later. I am now over 5 years on my second chance at life, and I don't waste a minute. My wise and beautiful mother always said, life is not a dress rehearsal. So you need to get out there, you need to live, and put yourself outside your comfort zone. So here I am today. I think of my donor and their family and count my blessings every day. Since my transplant, I've returned to work, I've returned to the gym, I've travelled, and I've even returned to sport. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt gratitude for the unbelievable care I received and continue to receive from the medical teams at the Mater and the CUH, and especially ILFA, who were a great source of support throughout my journey. I also would like to thank my husband Gary for his unwavering devotion, as well as my amazing family, especially my younger sister Valerie and my wide circle of friends. Thank you all.
Thanks, Irene. You've really shown how important it is to be resilient when you're on the transplant list. You know, 6 calls, you know, to be called 6 times and each time told, sorry, it's not your time. And you've also demonstrated that most people don't die on the transplant waiting list because they are taken off the waiting list once they become so ill that they're unlikely to survive the surgery. So again, it's another important point to understand. So thank you, Irene, and again showing the benefits of transplantation. You wouldn't think you'd ever been on death's door. So next up we have Stephen Comerford, and Stephen received a heart transplant.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen Comerford. I'm 47 years of age and also from the real capital, Cork. I'm husband to Karen and father to Sophie and Stephen, and this is my transplant story. My story dates back to September 1996, when my brother Gary died at the age of 15, playing soccer, the sport he loved so much. In his memory, the Cork Schoolboys League named the Under-15 Premier League in his memorial. In 2024, our son Stephen, who is here today, captained his team Middleton FC to lift Gary's trophy, which was a very special day for our family. Shortly after Gary's death, his heart was sent to London for testing. We were later told he died from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Our immediate and wider family were screened for the condition. I was subsequently diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy. In 2001, I was fitted with an implantable defibrillator, or ICD, and along with medication, under the excellent care of my cardiologist at CUH in Cork, I went on to live a relatively normal life. I was never sick to the extent of being hospitalised with the condition. I was very, very lucky. The occasional shock from the device during sport, applied to stop progression of either atrial fibrillation or ventricular fibrillation, proved to be the least of my problems. Following routine checks early last year, I was told that things had drastically changed. I was told by my cardiologist that I was in end-stage heart failure, and before I knew it, I was being assessed at the Mater Hospital for a heart transplant. After a week of assessment, I was placed on the transplant list for a new heart. I was later told that my life expectancy without a transplant was 2 years. After 2 ambulance journeys to the Mater, only to be told that the donor heart was not suitable for me, I was back down the road to Cork, waiting for an all-important next call. Thankfully, that call came in the summer of last year, which changed our lives forever. I received my new heart from my special donor family. Following 5 weeks of incredible care by my entire medical team at the Mater Hospital, I was heading home to my family in Cork with a new heart. A new lease of life, a second chance. I recall during my recovery in hospital, my cardiologist, Professor Emer Joyce, telling me that the life-ending condition I had was gone. Those were very powerful words. Today and every day I think about my donor and his family. The decision they made has saved my life, and I will be forever grateful to them for that. I stand before you as a donor recipient and would like to express my sincere thanks to the following. First and foremost, a special thank you to my wife Karen, my family and my colleagues at Aviva Insurance for your unwavering support. To everyone at the Irish Heart Foundation, which is my second family, and the Irish Heart and Lung Transplant Association for their work, especially around advocacy. To my cardiology team at both the CUH in Cork and at the Mater Hospital in Dublin. thank you to the team at the Irish Kidney Association for having me here today. For me, the message for today is a simple one. Please have the conversation around organ donation with your loved ones. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. And even though I was hearing it for the second time, I still, the way you just nonchalantly say, you know, the occasional shock to my heart, but you were still getting on with life. It just shows the strength. And also coping with the death of your brother Gary. And it shows really the importance of screening when these situations occur. So thank you for that, and for the strength, and for being here with us today. Next we're going to have Maria Messett from the Irish, who is the Irish Potential Organ Donor Audit Manager, ika.ie, with the National Office for Clinical Audit, or NOCA.
So, yeah, hi, I'm Maria, that's me. I work on the Irish Potential Organ Donor Audit. I have done for the last couple of years. It's a 3-year-old audit. I work with Catherine Motherway, who's here today, and I know a lot of you here understand the amount of work that she's done and contributed to the potential organ donor in the critical care setting in Ireland. And that's, I think, Professor George Millott, who's our chair, our new chair, and we're working really well together at the moment to bring our audit forward. So just a little bit about NOCA. You might not have heard of us. We're the National Office of Clinical Audit. We're mainly funded by the HSE, and we're the largest provider of audit for the HSE. We work supported by the RCSI, and we're an independent board overseen to maintain our kind of strategic direction and independence. Organ donation is a very rare event. I think in 2024 there was 36,000 hospital deaths, and we know how many proceeded to organ donation. It was very, very tiny, low numbers. So in our audit, the potential donor, as we measure them and include them in the audit, are unfortunately all deaths in the ICUs that we cover. We cover 6 major hospitals in Ireland, and it's nearly 50% of all deaths in ICU that we cover. So it's significant data. Our plan is to expand out and cover all deaths in ICU and ED in Ireland. So our patients that we include in the audit are less than 81 years of age. They're mechanically ventilated until the time of death, and they have suffered a neurological cause of death. So the potential donor audit is a clinical audit. The data is collected by clinical experts in the field in major hospitals that perform and are kind of tertiary referral centres. The IPODA is a clinical audit, but the main aim is to identify all deaths and to identify any missed opportunities. The overarching aim for the clinicians involved is that anybody who dies in an ICU is offered the chance to consider organ donation. I would add, with the support of specialist staff in making that decision. So the IPODA, as we're now calling it, brings the organ donation community together to look at the data that we collect, to look at any missed opportunities, and to look at how those missed opportunities can be supported and remediated in the future in any particular area. And this is the importance of getting out to include all deaths in Ireland, in that we can identify those places that don't have the supports that they need to perform or to support families in the decision making. We're hoping to drive the data to quality improvement and close the gap, to close that loop in the audit cycle, and very importantly, with the assurance to you guys, to the donors, the recipients, the donors' families, and to the public at large, that this whole rare event is monitored and held to standard and supported by all. So the audit, what we know for definite, top line, is that any organ donation, we know this nationally, any organ donation kind of a community, if they are audited, they perform better. We know this. This is beyond kind of reproach. The family approach
or more the question and how it's asked of the families that are in this extraordinary situation of losing somebody. The staff involved in this, their qualifications and the timing of the approach and the time that the family are given. The documentation of this and the quality around that are core metrics now in European data sets. I can't see my notes, I'm sorry. So consent is now seen as a key performance indicator for national audit organ donation kind of systems. Although a no from a family is often the absolute correct answer for a family in that situation, there is a lot of modifiable reasons that people say no to organ donation, and that's seen now as a reflection of the system and how it's working. The IPODA is going to support and monitored and be part of the response to the opt-out register, which was stood up in June last year. We've included a new data set so that we're collecting the opt-out register, how it's collected and when a patient might be approached before or after that check, which is an important interpretation of the legislation, or might be. There's a 3-year review that's been requested for that, and we'll answer to that in some way. So the extended donor criteria, our population's ageing in a much more healthy way. So the age criteria for donation is moving out. There's new national guidelines, and we're trying to move towards that in Ireland. Our counterparts in Europe are doing a more dynamic job in this, and they're utilising more older donors, and they're utilising more interventions in order to potentialise, is that the word, an organ when it has been removed. So we're moving towards that in Ireland, and our audit is collecting data on these patients in order to inform those moves. And NOCA, as a rule, we publicly report. So we report year on year. There's 3 reports up for the IPODA already, the development, feasibility, and a supplementary data report, and we're going to be issuing a report this year. So it means that we can compare year on year publicly and be held almost to account. We make recommendations, and we do a lot of work with stakeholders in order for those recommendations to mean something and to be reviewed year on year. Column's office actually owns a lot of the recommendations and approves what we decide to put out there. And that's it. Again, my name's Maria. I could talk about this all day. This is what I do, and it's really great to hear your stories, because sometimes you feel like you're just, not making too much of a difference. But I think we are, and I think it's really important that we get out there and meet more of you guys. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Marie. It made it really clear why this potential donor audit, or the new name, IPODA, is so important. And I think one of the big benefits of it being with NOCA, the National Office for Clinical Audit, is that all the reports, as Maria said, are published online. So you can actually go online and see the reports. And we're really looking forward to the September report when it comes out for 2024, because it really does, from being talking to Maria and some of the team around it, it really does help drive improvement. So it's a really important development, and great to see it being funded and expanded. And really what it will result in is that in every ICU, as Maria said, when a person is in this position, that they're given the opportunity to say yes or no. Because as we're going to hear from our next speaker, Mary, a lot of solace comes from actually giving the gift of life, and it's really important that everybody in that situation is given that opportunity. So I'd like to call on Mary McHugh now, who's going to tell her story of giving the gift of life on the death of her daughter Jane.
Majin Maha Karja, Moranike is Animdum, is Askal of me. It can take courage to stand in the spotlight looking out at expectant faces. However, it requires no courage, and is indeed an honour to be afforded the opportunity to speak about our daughter Jane's life, and to testify to the generosity of organ donors and the medical necessity of organ transplantation. Jane is the eldest of our family, have been born in this city 3 decades ago. Unfortunately, she passed away in this city 2 years ago from a subaqueous hemorrhage. This was despite the best treatment and care of medical personnel both in Portiuncula Hospital, Ballinasloe and Beaumont Hospital, Dublin. So, who was Jane? As her mother, I should have known her best. But every day has really revealed new aspects of her personality. She was that complex mix of qualities that are embodied in the human condition. She was certainly fallible, with the various consequences that come with it. But these weaknesses were totally overshadowed by her qualities of humour, generosity, courage, bravery, and her strong ethic. Her sense of humour was her North Star. It informed everything about her. Her laughter could be heard at the end of every room or any gathering. Jane's qualities were amplified during a fundraising event last year in aid of the Circle of Life Garden Galway and the Strange Boat Foundation. She was also highly intelligent, but wore it very lightly indeed. An A-grade student in Leaving Cert English pointed to one of her great passions in life, her love of drama and poetry. Her favourite poet was the English Jesuit Gerard Manley Hopkins, whose technical expertise and spiritual content touched her in equal measures. Her second love was her horses. She bred and fed them, she broke and rode them, but mostly she seemed to have conspired some secret code through which messages of love and trust were transmitted. So it was entirely appropriate that her last earthly journey from home to the church and finally to the cemetery was led by her favourite mare called Lady. I'm sure everyone here is aware of recent legal changes with regard to organ donation. But in our Jane's case, it was irrelevant. As her sister Aoife reminded me recently, they both acquired donor cards in their teenage years. Both of them asked me to sign it, and I said no. I'll be well gone before both of you. Aoife said, "It's okay, Mum, Dad will sign it." And Jane said, "If he doesn't, we will sign each other's." In the end, I signed both donor cards, a decision that I didn't take lightly, of a final wish that I hope I'd never have to carry out. The power of this signature and selfless decision resulted in Jane's liver, heart and kidneys being donated, and knowing that she has helped to save 4 lives is of great pride to us, her family. On the night Jane was taken from Dublin to Galway for the final time, my cousin Charlie informed me that the process of assessment for organ transplantation had commenced for himself. I had been a witness to his decline and ill health over the previous years. Consequently, I am intimately aware of both sides of the organ donor process. But thankfully, in Charlie's case, he was the recipient of a transplant later the same year. To conclude on a positive note, a letter was sent home written to Jane. It was from the recipient of one of her organs, sent anonymously to the organ donor coordinator Len. It was a testament of regained health, a renewal of life, and heartfelt gratitude for Jane's gift. And this is her legacy. Jane's favourite artist was Robbie Williams, and her favourite song was Angels. And a line from the song, I look above, I know I will always be blessed with love. I'm loving angels instead. For Emil Margaret.
Thank you, Mary. That was just so powerful, wasn't it? So difficult to get up and speak about that, and you gave great testament to Jane and what she was like, and as you said at the end, that's what organ donation is about. It is about love for a stranger. And it's also terrific to see that you can take pride in the lives you've saved, and we often hear that from organ donor families, that they take solace from the fact that it's a little candle of light at a very, very dark time. So thank you so much for that. So finally, we'll have Liz, our national chairperson, is going to conclude, and she'll say a few words now.
Thank you very much, Carol. And I wish to thank you all here today who have been with us here in the Mansion House, and to those of you who have joined with us online on our different social media platforms. To our branch volunteers and to our patient advocacy groups and other partners for their work in this area to promote this Organ Donor Awareness Week 2026. Thank you to all of you, the healthcare professionals here in the room, and to many of you in hospitals, dialysis centres, in communities right across Ireland who have really made organ donation and transplantation a possibility. We include the members of the Organ Donation and Transplant Ireland who are here today with us. Despite the strains of the healthcare system, you all continue to be so dedicated to organ donation and transplantation, and we are forever grateful to you. Thank you. Our thanks to Minister Jennifer, to the Department of Health officials, to Drs. Colm and to Professor Peter, and to Maria, who all spoke with us here today, and who have, in their lives, in their professional roles, have committed significant time and energy to organ donation. Thank you. We especially thank you today, those people, our friends and our families who have shared their experiences of organ donation and transplantation. Thank you to Stella, to Shannon, to Donal, Irene and Stephen. Your stories honour lost loved ones and inspire others. So we thank you for taking the time with us today and being with us. A special thank you to Mary for getting up here today, and Mhuile Buíochas, Mary, and for your ultimate and your family's ultimate generosity and your bravery. We thank you. We respectfully seek the media's support to share these people's stories to increase awareness about the importance of organ donation and the success of donation and transplantation that can have on individuals, families and communities' lives. These stories are filled with triumphs over diversity. They offer a beacon of light, of hope to those awaiting transplantation, while also honouring the lives of loved ones lost too soon. In times of great difficulty, they serve as a reminder of our shared humanity, fostering a sense of community, reinforcing our reliance on each other in community, as a Mehel, as citizens of Ireland, on one another to give the gift of life. So I plead with you, please go home and share. Don't leave your loved ones in doubt. Have the conversation. please support Carry a Donor Card. Have the conversation so organ donation will continue to be possible. Thank you very much. And finally, I'd like to invite you all to share with some light refreshments here today in the Mansion House. Thank you to all of those of you online, and if you want to exit at the back of the room. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much.
Quick.